Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Can you hear me all right, Tara? Can you hear me? Is it coming through? Check my microphone here. Okay, perfect. All right. Well, welcome to the first live session for Design 105, which is page layout tools. I'm Jason Merrill. I'm going to be your instructor this mod. I know that quite a few of you in the class had me last mod for Design 103, so it's good to see you back again. And for many of you, this is my first time with you, so it's nice to meet you. Today, what we are going to be doing, we're going to do just a little introduction to let you guys know a little bit more about me and find out a little bit about you. And then we're going to go through the class. We're going to go through navigating through each week, what the expectations are on the discussions and the assignments. We'll go what the multi-sessions are that we'll be doing every week, the best ways to contact me, and then the actual work that we have for this week, the discussion, the assignment, and the assessment, as well as some of the tools that are a part of that. So to start off, my name is Jason Merrill, like I said. I live here in Salt Lake City, Utah. I've been a graphic designer for over 15 years, and I've been teaching for about 7.5. I actually used to work for Apple Computers, about 12 years ago, and trained designers there as well. So I just have a real love for the combination of technology and graphic design. Started off originally doing illustration and working with animators. Just after high school, I mentored with a Disney animator, a really great guy who'd been working with Disney since Sleeping Beauty, actually. And so I just love all of this stuff, and InDesign is one of my favorite programs, which is what we're going to be using this mod. So I'm really looking forward to sharing that with you guys. So it looks like, Terry, you're the only one here, but let me know a little about yourself. Are you a graphic design major? Are you a web design major? What other Adobe programs have you learned so far? As far as the Creative Crown updated, that's just something, just a reminder for you while you're typing, Tara, on those ones. Make sure to keep these updated. What you want to do is just click on, up in your menu bar, if you're on a Mac, you'll have this little icon that looks sort of like a figure 8 that fell over. Oh, not sure how I got signed out. Let's sign me back in here. And if you're on a PC, then that is down in the lower right area. But you want to look for this little icon here and click on that and go to apps. And if there are any updates available, they'll show up in here. It'll tell you if there's any applications that you need to get an update for. Okay, so do make sure you're using the most recent one, because that's what I'll be teaching off of. So anyway, Tara, are you a graphic design major, or are you a web design major? Graphic design? Okay, great. And what other of the, so we're going to be doing InDesign this mod. What other of the Adobe programs have you learned so far? Photoshop and Illustrator. And are you new to all of them, or did you have any experience with them before starting school? Oh, okay, great. That's awesome. So graphic design in high school for 2 years. All right. Well, for any of you that have experience with these, you're going to notice that there are a lot of similarities between the Adobe programs, and then there's also some distinct differences. So that's kind of the trick, and what we'll be doing this mod is, showing you what things are going to be familiar to you if you already know Photoshop and Illustrator, and then also what things are going to act differently from what you may expect coming from those programs. And one more thing, so what part of the country are you from? Where are you located? Michigan. Oh, okay, great. Is that Eastern time zone or Central? Eastern. Okay, great. So it's noon there, huh? All right. Well, so we're going to go through the class real quick. First of all, you're going to see this announcement quite a bit. Make sure that you remember it. You've got, right, this is the time of year where all the FAFSAs have to be redone for the next year. And so make sure and contact financial aid just to make sure that yours is all set to go. And the announcement has the phone number and the email address there. It should pop up right when you log into the class, but I've also put it into our course announcements. So if you come into our course and you go to announcements here, then you'll see here's the financial aid one there. So just make sure and give them a call or send them an email and just double check that everything's good with your financial aid. We're going to come back to the announcements in a second, but already did yours. Perfect. Okay. Well, so in the classroom, I just want to make sure that point out a couple of important things that you're going to want to utilize. One, this live section link right here. There's a few videos that you're going to be required to watch every week. One of them is going to be this one, live session that I'm going to be doing every week. When I finish recording this one, I'm going to come in, I'm going to put the link to the recording right here under the week one. But you'll notice there's already another video there. Now, this is a pre-recorded lecture that goes over a lot of the information that you're going to need. So you need to watch this one as well, okay? So you're going to want to watch every week. There's going to be the pre-recorded one and then the live one that we do for that week. Make sure you watch both of those. And again, both those links will be just under live sessions when you're looking at the home page. If you just click on this live session, it'll be in there. Also, if you go to the modules and go to course media right here, this has got additional information. These are going to be shorter videos. You can see they're like a little over 2 minutes, under 5 minutes, so on. But for each week, there's week one broken down. This first one is the one that was also in the live session one. So you'll see this both in course media and in the live session link. So don't worry about, you don't need to watch it twice or anything, but that'll be in both places. But underneath that, you've got some additional resources that you're going to want to watch as well, okay? And most of them are videos, but some of them do have some like PDFs to read. Now, what you're going to notice is it's kind of split up in two sections. We've got required and then optional, okay? So you need to watch all the stuff in the required section. And then when you get down to optional, that's just like it sounds, optional. So there's some additional information that might be useful to you that you might want to take some time and watch or read, but it's not required for the class to do that. Okay? So make sure you're doing that every week. One of the things we have here are these lynda.com ones, okay? So the course is listed first, Introducing InDesign, okay? And then it gives you what videos on that you need to watch, document setup and rulers and guides, okay? So it's just there's got 2 videos under document setup and 1 in rulers and guides. Or up here, that's one of the optional ones. In the required section, we have get started in InDesign, and you need to watch these 2, the section there. So there's a little bit of an issue going on with lynda.com, this mod. And we've got an announcement. If you go into the announcements, there's an announcement here from Caroline Norton. It says, trouble seeing the Lynda playlist, please read this. And it gives special instructions for accessing the Lynda playlist for this week. Now, this is not, or sorry, for this mod, I should say. This is not expected to be a long-term thing. This is just an issue that happened with lynda.com, this mod. So hopefully this won't be something you'll have to do next mod, but just remember this is how you access this one. What it is first you need to open the Lynda portal, okay? And then you need to click this link to actually get to the playlist. So it's a 2-step process. Normally you just go to the Lynda portal and those are just there waiting for you. But this week what you're gonna do, if I just go to modules and go to the Lynda playlist portal, it takes me to this page that's got a link here to open Lynda, and that'll open it in a new window, okay? So now that that's open in a new window, I can go back here to the original window and go to that announcement that Caroline did and click on the week 1 playlist. and it'll take me to that playlist. So the reason it's 2 steps, the first one is logging you into lynda.com so that the link will even work. But once you're logged in, then you click that link and it takes you to the actual playlist for you to watch. Okay? Does that make sense? You clear on how to get to the Lynda videos in this mod? Okay, perfect. So, also on the home page, you have a section here called Instructor Bio. And this just gives a little information about me, the same sort of stuff that was there before. But the reason I'm bringing it up is it also has my email address and my phone number here. Okay, so if you need to get a hold of me for anything, you're welcome to call me. But I'm also one of the associate deans, so I'm in meetings quite a bit or talking to other students. So that if you call me, there's a very good chance you're going to get my voicemail. But that's just fine. Just leave me a message, and I'll call you back as soon as I can. But the reason I say that is that if you email me, oh, no problem. No problem. If you email me, the emails go to my cell phone. And a lot of times if I'm in a meeting or something like that, I can actually still reply to the email. And so the quickest way to get a response from me is from email. And I tend to reply to emails very quickly. So if you've just got a quick question about something, just shoot me an email and I'll get back to you. If you want to talk on the phone, then just give me a call. And you'll probably leave me a voicemail, but I'll give you a call as soon as I get that. Okay? All right. Now, back on the home page again, I want to point out this is one tool that I find particularly useful, and I always like to make sure that my students know about it. And it's this little help button down here. Now, this help button is a help for a very specific thing. It's help for the website. Okay, it's actually run by the company that provides our website for the school. So you don't want to go to this help if you're having a problem with your computer. You don't want to go to this help if you're having a problem with InDesign. But what this is for is, let's say that you're trying to submit something and it's giving you some problems. Or let's say you're trying to put an image in a discussion post and you're having a hard time doing that. That's what this is for. If you come click on that help right there, anything that has to do with the website itself, you've got a phone number or you've got live chat. You can get help either way, and they're very quick and very good about helping resolve any issues that have to do with the website. Okay. Now, for this course, we are going to be doing a live session every Tuesday, like we're doing today. But we've got a second session that's called the multi-session, and we're going to be doing that every Thursday. Now, what the multi-session is, and I think I'm probably getting ahead of myself in my PowerPoint presentation there, but that's fine. What the multi-session is it's a time where I'm just going to be here in the course for 2 hours, just available to help you one-on-one. Okay, so if you're struggling with the work for the week, you have a question about something with InDesign, any of that sort of stuff, you can come into the multi-session, and there's not going to be like a set curriculum. I'm not going to be recording anything. It's not going to be a class any whatsoever. It's just going to be coming in to get some help from me one-on-one if you're struggling with something. Okay, and the reason they call it a multi-session, we're going to be doing it in this class on the same time that we do the live session on Tuesdays, but we're going to be doing it on Thursday, right? So Thursday from 10 a.m. to noon Mountain Time is going to be our multi-session. But if let's just say that you work during that time, or for some other reason that time is just not going to work for you to come in, the nice thing is that you have the ability to join the multi-session of any of the courses that hold multi-sessions. It doesn't just have to be mine. And the other students in those courses can come to mine if they need help. So here in the announcements, we have this announcement that says 100 level multi-session schedule for this mod. If you click right here on this PDF, that will download the schedule for all of the multi-sessions. Okay, so here's ours right here. And so if you just go in here, you can say, oh, okay, so for example, Friday at 3 p.m., that would work for me. That's Shell at this, who's teaching print production and color theory. So I'll just click this link and go to it. Now, again, she's teaching print production and color theory, but she's fully available to help out with page layout. Does that make sense? So don't worry about who the instructor is or what class there is. You can go to any of these at any of these times to get some one-on-one help if you'd like to. But mine is going to be on Thursday at 10 a.m. Okay? All right. Now, let's just say that none of those times are going to work for you. And you really need some one-on-one help, but none of those times are going to work. Well, the next thing we have is what's called our learning coach. Our learning coach this month is Christy Paulson. And every week I'm going to be posting Christy's schedule. Getting that. This is something that's been happening with my web browser since I did an update. You will see her schedule here. Oh, well. When you go into there, you'll see her schedule. It has her times when she's available for this week and has her contact information. And she's there just for the same thing. If you need some one-on-one help with any of this stuff, then she's available that as well. So you've got the multi-sessions. And if none of those are going to work for you, then you've got Christy's schedule. If that's not going to work for you either, kind of as a last resort, you can also just go into the Student Success Center in general. If you click on Student Success Center, this is going to be manned by the learning coaches. It's better if you can go to the multi-session or to Christy, just because we're specifically looking at this course. But these guys do coaching for all the courses, so they are definitely a good source of help too. If I click on hours of operation here, you can see, I'll just go to graphic arts, that they're open a lot. Like these, I mean, you can go into them up until 11 o'clock p.m. on a lot of nights, till midnight on Saturday night. So very, very wide hours, very easy to get into and get some help from the Student Success Center. And all you do to get in there is just, again, click the link right here for Student Success Center, and then you just click this button here, click to enter Student Success Center. And if you have any trouble with it, this link to the right gives you login instructions for getting in to get help with them. Okay, so lots of resources for help. And I just want to remind you, the most important thing in this course is that you understand all the concepts that we're teaching in this course by the time the course is over. Because this course is specifically here to teach you the program, to teach you how to use InDesign to do this type of work. And then in a lot of your other courses going forward, you're going to be using InDesign for that course, and the instructor is going to assume that you already know how to use it because you already finished this course. I say that because, obviously you want to get good grades. Obviously that's a high priority, but the biggest priority is that you understand it. So please take advantage of those one-on-one help resources. If you're struggling with anything in the work, what I really don't want is for you to just turn it and say, hey, sorry, I didn't really get this, but here's the best I could do. If you're not getting something, come in and get some help, because it's going to make things so much easier for you for the rest of this course, and it's going to make things easier for you in your future courses and in your career as well. All right. All right. Now, with the announcements, as I keep going in here for these things, I'm going to be loading things in the announcements throughout the mod. Just do me a favor, anytime you log into the class, just look in the announcements, and if there's anything in there you haven't seen yet, take a minute and read it. Another announcement that's in here right now is just kind of a preview for a contest they're doing this summer. This one just goes over some of the prizes that are going to be given out. It's going to be drawings for some pretty cool stuff, and they're going to be doing further announcements going forward with what you need to do, what activities to do in order to be eligible for the drawings. All right. Okay, so let's jump back here now. Let's talk about the guidelines or rules, I guess I could say, for the different types of work we're going to be doing. So every week you're going to have a discussion. And in order to get full credit on the discussion, you need to do your reply to the prompt, your initial post, by Wednesday night. Okay, so 11:59 p.m. Mountain Time, Wednesday night of the week. Then you need to do at least 2 replies to your classmates' posts, okay? And those replies need to be done by the end of the week, so by 11:59 p.m. Mountain Time on Saturday. And then one last rule with the discussions is you need to participate on at least 2 days of the week. So don't just go in there on Tuesday and do all 3 of them. make sure that to at least spread it out so you're at least doing something in the discussions on 2 days of the week, because that's part of the points are tied to that as well. And so in order to get full credit on these, you're going to have at least 3 posts that you've done, your initial one, and then the 2 replies to your classmates' posts. Now, these need to be what's called a substantive post, okay? So your initial post needs to be at least 150 words and have an APA formatted citation, okay? And there's if you go into the course information in the class, general guides, and then writing style requirements, it's got information on how to do the APA formatting. And then on your replies, you need to do at least 50 words. It needs to be continuing on with the conversation. Your reply to your classmates, it shouldn't just be, I agree or great job, but actually, giving your thoughts on what they said and adding to that conversation. And that should be at least 50 words. So at least 150 words on your initial, and then at least 50 words on each of your 2 replies. And that's for the discussions. All right, any questions on that? Okay. Now for the assignments and the assessments, they are all due by Saturday at 11:59 p.m. Mountain Time. If something is going on that's going to make you late, please get a hold of me before the deadline and let me know what's happening. And if we can, we might be able to make some arrangements. If there's something going on, like, if you're really sick or things like that, just get in touch with me and we might be able to arrange something. If it's just submitted late, it definitely can be submitted. There's a 20% deduction for late submissions. That still leaves 80% of the points available for it to go to your grade, so it's still well worth doing. But just know that if you haven't made any arrangements and it is submitted late, then there is a 20% deduction for the late submission. Okay. Also, we do revisions in this class. Revisions are a big part of being a designer. You're going to be doing revisions all the time for work that you did for clients, getting feedback and then making changes. And we want to get started with that right now. So when you turn in your work for the week, I'm going to go in, I'm going to grade it. So I'm going to give you feedback in the rubric and also just in the comments of the grade book. And at the end of the week, we go in and read that. If you lost some points for anything, then you absolutely have the capability in this class to go in and fix those things that I said needed to be fixed and resubmit it. And if you do that, then I'll go in and I'll regrade it and I'll adjust your score. So if you get something back, yeah, exactly. Tara says, I've worked in a graphic design shop for a little. Revision was everything. That is right. Revision's a big part of our job. So yeah, so if you get a grade back on something and you're like, oh man, I really wanted to get a higher score on that, you still can. Just get it back out there, read through the comments, make the changes that need to be made, and turn it back in again, and I'll regrade it and adjust your score accordingly. Okay, so keep that in mind as we go through the weeks. So here's the information about the multi-sessions. We've already gone over that. And again, my contact information, but the easiest way to find that, just go into the classroom and go into that instructor bio section. So any questions on just the classroom environment and rules in general before we get into the actual topics? Okay. All right, so we've got what are called our learning objectives. These are the things that we want to learn in each week for this course, okay? So for this week, these are the learning objectives we're going to do. We're going to go over some basic InDesign tools and terms. We're going to define how InDesign is used in the field and describe 5 scenarios when it would be used. We're going to identify and match 10 basic tools to the description of their use. Identify and match 5 InDesign panels to their functions. Create a new document in InDesign and insert text frames and images. Describe the difference between InDesign's rectangle tool and rectangle frame tool, which we're going to be looking at today. And then utilize the rectangle, oval, and line tools to create a composition in InDesign. Utilize InDesign's character panel to apply changes to font size, kerning, tracking, and leading. Illustrate how to utilize the color palette within InDesign. and prepare an InDesign document for print output using the package tool, and also to show correct image sizing and cropping methods within InDesign. Okay, so those are all things that we're going to be through what we go through in our live session, through the videos that you watch outside of this video, and then through the work itself. By the time this week's over, you should have all of those learning objectives fulfilled. Okay, so let's talk about our discussion for this week. First of all, we have two discussions, but only one of them is graded. We have this discussion here that's called You, the Artist. It's introduce yourself. And this is just for us to get to know each other. I definitely encourage you to go in and participate in it. In here, it talks a little bit about, you know, who you are and how you see yourself as an artist. But again, this one's not graded. This is just something for us to get to know each other. The graded discussion is this one here. It's called InDesign in Field. Okay. So what this says here, it says graphic design is a very diverse field, and the use of InDesign as a tool within it is just as diverse. As our means of communication changes and diversified, our software and technology work hard to keep up with the current trends and changes. InDesign is no exception. One of the things that can be most confusing for a new designer is which software to use for each new project. In the same way, one of the most frustrating things for our vendors is receiving files that are in the wrong format. For example, a newsletter layout in Illustrator or a logo in Photoshop, which are industry standard no-nos. So how is InDesign used? So do you know, I mean, you say you worked in a graphic design, Tara, what would you say is InDesign's primary purpose? You used it for magazines? Yep, that's a big one. So magazine and brochures, yeah, really anytime that you are doing a layout that is combining multiple elements, like you're going to have some imagery and some text, then InDesign is a go-to for that, right? And sometimes even ones without imagery, although logos, but like, you know, we'll do business cards in InDesign, we'll do invitations in InDesign. InDesign is absolutely fantastic in managing text, particularly large amounts of text. If you're dealing with a lot of text, InDesign is absolutely where you're going to go. Illustrator has some great text capabilities for some purposes you may go to Illustrator for text, or be able to choose either one. But a lot of times when you're dealing with text, you're going to find yourself in InDesign. and one way to think of InDesign is it's kind of like it's kind of where you go to put everything together, right? So some writer may have written the text in a Word document. You may have created the logo in Illustrator. You may have gotten some photos all prepped and ready to go in Photoshop. And then you're going to go into InDesign and you're going to take all those elements and lay them out on the page, put them in the final layout, the final design that then is going to go to print, or they use it for ebooks and things like that as well. So yeah, anytime that you look at, like you said, a magazine, anytime you look at a newspaper, when you're looking at a lot of advertisements, movie posters, things like that, in most of those cases, InDesign is what was used to lay it out. In fact, also books. If you buy a book at the bookstore, it's generally been laid out in InDesign as well. And InDesign is actually fairly new, relative to a lot of these other programs, as far as being an industry standard. Not too many years ago, it was Quark was the program that was the really big one for this sort of stuff. But then Adobe created InDesign, and it was just so much more user-friendly than Quark is, and so it very quickly dominated that field. So anyway, what we're going to be doing for this discussion is we're going to look at InDesign and how it's used in field today. You might try a job website like monster.com, or you can consider checking some other ones like Indeed or the Art Center Project or any job listing resource you know of. Use InDesign as a keyword for your search and take note of the job titles and descriptions that come up. Are any of the listings something you might be interested in? Why or why not? In your post, write about one of the positions you found and list the job duties that require InDesign knowledge as a skill. List ideas of how you will become a Power InDesign user so you can be hired. For example, to become a Power InDesign user, I will learn one InDesign shortcut a day. Discuss why you feel your methods will be successful. Okay, so we're looking at the career world for InDesign. So that's our discussion this week. Any questions on what we're doing for our discussion this week? Okay, and again, just remember we need to have that initial post in by Wednesday night, and then at least 2 replies by the end of the week, and make sure that you're participating at least 2 days of the week. All right. Okay. Now the assessment for this week. The assessment this week is a quiz, okay? And the quiz is based upon what we're going over today in the live session, the readings, the videos that I showed you that are in the course media section, but it's going to be taken from all of that. It's 11 questions long. There's no time limit on it. Make sure to read the questions carefully. A lot of times that they do these little tricks to kind of keep people from cheating, and what it is they'll have 2 questions that seem like they might have the same answer, but they actually are worded a little differently to make the answer different, so just make sure you're reading them very carefully. And they're primarily on the tools and the panels that we're going to be talking about, well, some today and then also throughout the other videos that I talked about. Okay, so that's the assessment. Pardon me. So for our assignment, you're going to create a cover for a menu, okay? Actually, a couple of covers for menus. In next week, we're going to be actually filling in that menu. So this week, don't worry about anything that's inside of the menu. This week is just going to be the cover. However, the inside of the menu, you want to have it follow the same style as the outside. So be thinking about that when you're doing your cover. Be kind of thinking, well, what's the inside going to look like? Because you don't want to kind of paint yourself in a corner by creating a cover that then when you get inside doesn't work as well for laying out the actual menu itself. Okay, so it says in the field of graphic arts, we frequently give the client more than one option to choose from. Right, so for this week, you'll be designing 2 versions of the same menu cover. So they're going to give you I think it's 3 different restaurants, and you're going to pick which one you want, okay? But you're going to do 2 versions of the menu cover for that restaurant, right? So actually, let's go, and before we go through the restaurants, let's just jump in and look at the assignment and what we have here. So make sure and read this background. I'm going to skip over it, but it just goes over some of the things for doing this. Here's our prompt. So for this assignment, you're going to create some cover designs for a menu. So review the 3 menu options below. Choose only one of the 3 menu options. So you're just choosing one restaurant. Then you're going to create a new InDesign document with the following specifications. And we're going to go through doing this later on today. But it's going to be an 8.5 by 11 inch page. It's going to be 2 pages. So we've got 1 page for each of the options. You're going to do these both options in one InDesign file, not 2 different InDesign files. You're going to have margins of 0.375 inches and bleeds of 0.125 inches. We're going to go through what those are later on today. We're going to turn off facing pages, which we'll go through as well. And then this note here, the initial default setting for InDesign is in picas. Make sure you've changed your preferences to be in inches before you create your new document. We're going to go through that as well, okay? So then you're going to use the logo and tagline from your chosen restaurant to create the menu cover layout. You can add colored or patterned backgrounds, utilize the photos provided, plus add lines or shapes to your design. It can be as simple or as complex as you think the restaurant warrants. I mean, you've all eaten out, menus vary significantly. Then you're going to go to page 2, and you're going to create a second version of your cover. So you can try different backgrounds, try different opacities, different styles, go for a different approach, basically. And then, again, remember, whatever you're going to do here is going to carry on to week 2. So be thinking about that as well. Okay. Now, in each of these examples, you're going to see there's a example menu cover. If you copy that, part of your rubric is the creativity store. So this is supposed to be your design. If you copy their layout, you're going to get pretty low on that creativity score. So make sure you're thinking of this as your own design and doing your own layout, not just reproducing the one that's shown here. Okay. Then when it's done, you're going to package the file, which we're going to go through how to do that later. Name it as it says here, and zip it up and turn in the zip file. Okay. So let's look at our options. Now, remember, these are, when we're creating something for a client, we want to be thinking about the client's target audience, right? Who are the people that this client is serving? Who are their customers? Because we need our design to speak to them, right? So, for example, if our first one is Maxwell's Fine Steaks and Seafood. Maxwell's has graced downtown Atlanta for over 80 years. Since they are known worldwide for their overall customer experience, there's a 6-month waiting list for reservations. All staff is in tuxedos, and crisp white linens grace the candlelit tables. Their entrees range from $52 to $82, with all side dishes served a la carte. This truly exemplifies what a fine dining experience means, right? So this cover is not going to look like a menu to, Chuck E. Cheese, right? You're going to be thinking, okay, the people that are coming here are planning on spending a lot of money and having a really nice night out. So your design needs to go for that same audience. If we scroll down, whoa, be quick there. This goes over some of the assets that are given to you. If we jump back over to the class, you'll see here's Maxwell's, and you're going to click right here to download these assets. So you've got that same description I just read, and then a list of what assets are available in that download. And I just got them here in the PowerPoint. So we've got some photos, and we've got this example menu. Now, again, you're not going to want to just copy this one, but this is just kind of an idea of what, of what you can do with the assets that you've got. Okay, but again, this week we would just be doing the cover. This interior here is just as a reference. Okay, so choice number 2 is the Starlight Bistro, something great by the sea. Best friend Margot and Penny opened up Starlight Bistro after not finding what they really wanted in a restaurant: healthy food. Starlight Bistro is a very small restaurant, decorated with holiday lights, star ornaments, and colorful prints. It is eclectic in food, entertainment, and the personalities on both sides of the counter. Shoes are optional, as they're situated right on the beach. For under $20, you can get a healthy meal with a fabulous view. Okay, and then we've got some photographs and some, the logo will come with the resources you downloaded as well. And then your third one, we've got Walk and Roll, Chinese and Sushi Restaurant. The Walk and Roll came about when the restaurant owners Lou and Wen decided to stop competing for Orlando's best in Asian cuisine and instead join forces and create a unique Orlando dining experience. Families from around the world feel comfortable in the simple contemporary black, white, and red decor. Prices range from $8.95 to $15.95 for a plate that is certain to yield more than one meal. And then we've got some images and examples. And again, these are laid out, but when you download the resources, you'll get the images separate and the logo, so on and so forth, to create your menu. Okay. So, any questions on the I guess just concept of what you're doing for the assignment? Again, we're going to go through some specifics and how to use tools and things like that for the rest of the course. Okay. All right. So, again, using the logo and tagline, create that menu item. That menu. Make sure the logo's on there. That's going to be a very important one. This is the rubric, just so you have an idea of how this is going to be graded. So you've got a total of 120 points. 20 points are going to come from being on time, with it being a proper format zipped package folder. Okay. To spec, it's got to have the right page sizes, margins, and bleeds, and the file's not in spreads. That's going to be 20 points. 2 different layouts of the same menu cover are included, and each contain the same information presented in different ways. Again, don't pick 2 restaurants. It's one restaurant with 2 different layouts. That's going to be 30 points of it. Images are sized properly and image frames are appropriately used. That's going to be 10 points. Typography is proportional, legible, and readable. That's going to be 10 points. The frames are properly positioned on the layouts. Text and image frames are properly used. So that's going to be 10 points. And then overall creativity, the layout reflects an understanding of basic design principles. They're creative, professional, and could be used to a client with few or no changes. There is a basic use of elements of design and the CRAP principles: contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. And the assignment did not duplicate the example layout, and that's going to be 20 points of it. Okay. So, any questions at all on the work for the week? Okay. Well then, let's jump into InDesign. I'm just going to pull this off to the side here. Let's jump into InDesign and take a look at some of these things that we're going to need to do. All right, I have two screens hooked up, and a lot of times when I open the programs, it does the opening on the other screen, and so it looks to you guys like absolutely nothing's going on, but it actually was opening. Okay. So, when we go into InDesign, you're going to see this, and the first thing you're going to want to do is click New here in order to set up a new document. And when we come in here, we've got a few things. You've got some recent sizes and layouts that you've done. If you have any saved ones, you can get into it there. But then you've got some templates that are given based upon how you're going to use it. So print, web, and mobile. Now, over here on the right, we have the actual details of what the page setup is. And so you can start with a template and then go ahead and adjust this as needed. Or you can just jump right into adjusting these. But either way, this over here on the right is what is determining what the document opens as. Over here on the left is all just presets in order to get to what you want to get to here. Okay. Now, the default, like she said, I believe the default is Pika's still. There's a chance it got changed with the last update. But if you go into it and it says Pika's right here, make sure you're looking at the units, okay? So if I were to come in here and say, okay, so I want this to be 8.5 inches, is it? Okay, great, thanks, Sarah. Still Pika's. So if I said, I want it to be 8.5 by 11, and if I think I just set that to what I'm supposed to be, Pika's are much smaller than inches. So if I come change that to inches, I'm creating a document that's under 1.5 inches wide and under 2 inches tall. This is a tiny document. When I go in there and try to do things with text, everything's going to work wrong. Everything's going to, I have so many problems laying this out. So it's very important to take a look at those units. Now, the nice thing is you can just change it every time you're setting up a new document, but you can also change what the default is. And the way you do that is to make that change before you even click New. You want to make that change when you're right here. If you go in and make this change I'm going to show you when you have a document open, then InDesign remembers that change only for that document. It thinks, okay, so this is what they want it to be for this one. But if you make the change when it's just on this, then it's going to do it for the entire setup. So, Taylor, that's a good question. Let me get to that in 1 second. I'll answer that one for you. But so what you're going to do, if you're on a Mac, you're just going to click InDesign and go to Preferences. If you're on a Windows computer, Preferences is under the Edit menu, okay? In the Preferences, you want to go to the Units and Increments option. And right here, where it says Ruler Units, you just change horizontal and vertical to inches. If you change those to inches, then it's going to automatically default to inches when you go to create a new document from now on. Okay? Otherwise, like I said, you can actually just change it right here anytime you're making a new document. So Tara's asking, can she set the color to CMYK. That is being determined by which document intention you choose. Okay, so if I go into print and I start with any of these ones and then do whatever I want to do, then it's going to be set to CMYK. If I go into web or mobile, then it's going to be set to RGB, because it's going to assume that my end result is my desire is to have it go on the web, and so therefore it needs to be RGB. Does that make sense? Now, you can change it. If I open up this web document right here, I'm trying to remember where it is in here. Let's see. It might be the color settings. No, that's just the settings for the RGB. I so rarely have to do this in here, but there is a way to do it. Well, or there was, maybe they changed that with they may have changed it with the most, well, oh, you're right here. Okay, so if you needed to change that after the fact, you would just go to File, Document Setup, and you just change your intent. See that? So if I change my intent to print, then I'm now going to be in an RGB, in a CMYK color space. All right. Okay, so for this one, our intention is print. This is a menu, that's going to be printed out. So we just start with print. And we know that the size we need is 8.5 by 11. So we just make sure we're on inches, and then do 8.5 by 11. The orientation, you can decide whatever orientation you would like. I'm okay with you doing, if you'd rather have it be a landscape rather than portrait. But, generally, portrait is what you're going to see in a menu. But if you've got a great design that would work well with landscape, then that's fine. Now, for this assignment, we're going to uncheck facing pages. I want to go over what facing pages is, though, just so you can see. I'm going to leave that checked, and I'm going to say that we have 5 pages on this document. I'm going to click Create. And what you're going to see is I've got my first page here, just by itself, because that's my cover. But all the other pages are going to be spreads, okay? So this is like if I'm laying out a magazine, your menu, for example, would have spreads when the final one's done. But the type of thing where you've got a front cover and then you've got these spreads with the actual layouts of the rest of the pages, that's when you're going to use facing pages. Now, if I do that with only 2 pages, what it does is this ends up being a little odd. I'll just say, oh, I want 2 pages. And it says, okay, well, there's page 1 and there's page 2, because it's trying to make a spread down here, but there's not another page to make a spread with. Now, if I ever did need to make a 2-page spread, let's say I don't want that cover page there, I just want all spreads. I've got this thing here that says start, what start number? This is what page am I starting on? So I can say I want a 2-page document, but I want it to start on page 2, basically skip page 1 entirely. And so when I hit create, I'm just going to get a spread because I skipped that first page, right? So, and in future assignments in the course, we will be using spreads. For this assignment, we're just going to uncheck facing pages so that it's not a spread at all. Okay, I'm going to set that back to 1 on start number. So just uncheck facing pages, and we're going to do a 2-page document. And so when I click create, you'll see that I get 2 pages, just one on top of the other there in a more standard looking format. Okay. So far what I've done for my setup, I've set myself, to make sure that it's the web intention. I've set myself to 8.5 by 11 inches. I've got 2 pages. I've got facing pages unchecked, okay? Now, I can set columns from out here. For a cover, you're unlikely to need that. But when you get inside, this is very handy. If I say that I want 3 columns, for example, and I jump in there, you'll see that I've got column guides all set up for me to start laying out my text frames within those columns. But again, for a menu cover, we're not really going to need multiple columns, so I'll keep that as one. But two other things I need to set. I need to set my margins and I need to set my bleed. So margins are right down here. You just need to click that little arrow there and it'll expand it. The margin is the little bit of padding between the edge of the page and the text, right? Like when you open a magazine, the words don't go right up to the edge of the page. They leave some space on the left, the right, top, and the bottom. Now, in some cases, we want our margins to be exactly the same on all sides. Oh, and if I have spreads checked, the facing pages, notice that my margin options say top, bottom, inside, and outside, because it's looking at not right or left anymore, but inside toward the middle of the spread versus toward the outside of the spread. When I have that unchecked, then I get top, bottom, left, and right. So anyway, right now it's set so they're all the same. So if I come in here and the instructions for this assignment is to have my margins at 0.375. And you'll notice if I change one, all those are going to change. The reason is that this little chain link over here is clicked down. That means link all these together. If I change one, change all the rest of them. If I unlink this, then now you can see that's broken. And now I could change each one individually if I wanted, maybe a smaller margin on the top or something like that. But in this case, I'll just leave those connected because I do want them all the same. Now, before we do the bleed, let's go and just look at the lines we get with the margin. So when I'm looking at my page, you can see that I have this pink line, this pink like rectangle that's inside my page. So the white I'm seeing is the whole page. The pink is my margin line, okay? So when I'm setting up text, I know that I don't want to go outside of that pink margin, right? Unless there's a very specific design reason to do that. So I've got this pink margin visible. Now let's look at bleeds. And I'm going to show you why we use bleeds before we look at bleeds too much. First of all, when you're working in design, you're going to see a lot of this sort of thing, little lines that show you what you're doing, like when we had those column lines, for example. But so when you're working on it, sometimes you just want to see what the page is going to look like without any of the lines, like what it's going to look like when it's printed or exported to PDF or whatever. And the keyboard shortcut for that is just the letter W. If you tap W, it switches you to a preview mode where you can see it without any of those lines. You're just going to see exactly what is going to print or export. So you can see the margin lines are now gone. And if I hit W again, then that takes me back to where I can see it in the layout mode where I'm getting those lines and guides to help me as I'm doing my layout. Okay. So let's talk about why we would use a bleed, first of all. I'm just going to go to one of my shape tools here, and we'll talk about these a little more today, but I'm going to create a rectangle, and I'm going to make that rectangle blue, okay? So let's just say that I am planning on designing this menu, and it's going to have this blue frame that goes all the way to the edge up here at the top, okay? Sorry, just 1 second, take care of a cough. Okay, sorry about that. So the thing to remember is that when you're printing, printing systems, they're not perfect. They're pages can shift just the slightest bit as they're going through the printer. And what you can end up with is something like this, right? Where you've just got this little tiny sliver of a white line on one side, or maybe it's on the top on one side. But either way, we don't want that. We want our color to go right to the edge. We don't want it to have this little white line because the page shifted when we print it. So that is what a bleed is for, okay? A bleed allows us to design to beyond the edges of the page, okay? And then they trim that bleed off when they print it. So let me show you what I mean. Let's close this page. And we're going to go back to create a new page. And we've got so far our page size, 2 pages, not facing pages. We've got our margins correct. So now I'm going to go to bleed and slug. And I'm just going to worry about the bleed. And I'm going to put the bleed at 0.125 inches. And same thing, because that's checked over here, they all changed, all sides of the bleed. So perfect. Now I'm going to go create. And what you're going to see is I now have this little red line that is outside of my document. It's outside the edge of the page. That is the bleed. And what I need to do is when I'm designing something that's going to go right to the edge of the page, I need to take it completely past the edge of the page and all the way out to the bleed. So this would be the appropriate way for me to design that blue top. And you can see it's going out past the edge of the page to the bleed. So let's see what a printer would see this at. I'm going to just export this. I'm going to Adobe PDF presets. I'm saying high quality print. And I'm just going to name this as example. Now in here, these are my PDF settings. I want the bleeds to show up on the PDF. And I also want what's called printer's marks to show up on the PDF. So I'm just going to click here where it says marks and bleeds. And I'm just going to check this box that says all printer's marks. And this one that says use document bleed settings. Okay. So now I'm using printer's marks and the bleed settings, and I just click export. So here on my desktop, I now have my PDF that I created. And what you're going to see, this is what a printer receives when they're going to print something. And it's got a bunch of marks on it, but they use these marks. We've got this gradient here from dark to white, these color swatches here. Those are all there to help calibrate their printers, as are these registration symbols on the sides and top and bottom. But you'll see that there's also a couple of tick marks in all the corners. This first one is the page size, and this outer one is the bleed, okay? And what you'll see is that when the printer gets this, he's going to trim it. He's going to print it, and this is what it's going to print like. And then once he's printed it, oh, come on, are you going to let me? There we go. Once he's printed it, he's going to cut along these page markers. I'm just going to use the trim capabilities of this program. So he would just cut right along these lines here. So you can see how that's right with these cut lines. And when he does that, all those marks are gone. Those are all outside of that page area. And we definitely are going to get color right up to the edge of the page because it was going past that point and they trimmed it down to this. Does that make sense? Okay. So that's what bleeds are for, and we need to be using that with this week's assignment. So set up your bleeds when you set up the page, and then also make sure to use your bleeds when you are designing. If you have a background color, it needs to go all the way out to the bleeds. If you have a banner going across it, it needs to go all the way out to the bleeds. Anything that's supposed to touch the sides of the page or the top and bottom of the page needs to go out to the bleeds. Okay? So what we're going to do now, we're going to take a 15-minute break, and then we're going to come back and go through several more of the tools and techniques that you're going to be using for this week's assignment. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and just set a timer here. And I'll see you in 15. Okay, we are back. Can you hear me again, Tara? Perfect. All right. Well, let's go back over here and let's talk about a few other things in working with InDesign. So first of all, you're going to find a lot of tools very familiar and similar to what you had in working in Illustrator and sometimes Photoshop. For example, down here we have our shape tools, like we'd seen the rectangle tool, the ellipse tool, and the polygon tool. They work just the same. Click and drag out a shape like so, change my fill, change my stroke. We're going to talk more about those in a minute. But one thing I want to show you, well, and then we've also got, my selection tool where I can resize, hold shift to maintain my proportions, where I can rotate by grabbing that upper corner there. I've got my direct select tool where I can just work with one point on a shape or frame like that. I have my pen tool for doing vector drawings. Pen tool, the add anchor point, the convert anchor point tool, and those are going to function just the same as you would have learned in Illustrator, right? So you can use all those for your drawings. One thing I want to point out that's a little different is you've got two rectangles here now. We've got the rectangle tool and we've got the rectangle frame tool. Sorry, I had a cold last week and everything's gone but the cough. So the rectangle frame tool is specifically for creating a frame for images, okay? So don't mistake the two. They can be interchanged to a certain degree, but you want to get in the habit of not doing that. The difference is this X running through the middle. Obviously, that's how you can find, see which one is which. F is the keyboard shortcut for the frame tool. And the idea is that I would drag out a placeholder for my image. A lot of people, when they're working with InDesign, will actually lay out the page before even receiving the final pieces, like before they have the final photographs or anything, before they have the final text, and they'll use placeholder text and image frames to mark those. But also the image frame allows us to have a lot of control over the specific size of the image, and you're going to see how in just a minute. But so let's say that I have this frame here. Up here in my control panel, I've got specific width and height dimensions right here. So if I know that I need this frame to be, let's say, 4.5 inches wide, and maybe I need it to be 3.5 inches tall, then I know that that is the exact size of this frame now. And I can place an image in that and have it work within that specific size without needing to crop the image first. So let's talk about how to place an image in that. I'm just going to select my frame and I'm going to go up here to File and Place, or Command D is the shortcut for that. If you're on a Windows computer, it's Control D. And it's going to open up my file browser here, and I'm just going to go find an image. Use my honeybee image, and I'm going to click Open. Now, this is a very high resolution image. So what you're seeing right now is actually a very small part of this image, because the image itself is huge, but my frame is 4.5 inches by 3.5 inches. So that's all it's going to allow it to see. If I double click on this, it's going to show you the line of my image. You see this brown line that just appeared all the way out here, runs all the way down like that. That's the actual size of the image. And when I have that brown line visible, if I were to use the arrow keys, you can see I can move that within the frame. I could also resize this in the way that you resize anything else. I could click on here, hold down Shift to make sure that I was maintaining proportions, and I could just drag that smaller, and you see how it's resizing that within the frame. Okay, so when I double click on it and I see the brown outline, that's showing me that I'm dealing with the image itself, not the frame. When I click away, I'm going to click back on it just once, and now you can see I'm dealing with the frame. If I were to resize this, it resizes the frame, not the image. It just shows more of what was underneath it. If I were to move it, I'm moving the two of them together, right? But I'm not showing a different part of the image. Now, before I go on to the shortcuts you're going to most likely use for this, any questions about just that general concept about the frame and the image being two separate things? Okay. So usually when I'm working with a frame, some very convenient shortcuts, unless I actually do want to zoom in on a very specific part of this image, I'm probably going to use one of these shortcuts up here, okay? Now there's some of these are, one in particular is very useful all the time. Other ones have more niche scenarios, okay? So this one right here is the one that is very useful a lot of the time. This is fill the frame proportionally, okay? Fill the frame proportionally is going to take it and it's going to shrink down this image so that it covers every single part of this frame, but maintains the proportion of the image. Now, because the image isn't those exact same proportions, I'm going to double click on this and you'll see what it actually did is it made it just as wide as this, but there's actually a little more of the image sticking out of the top and bottom of this frame because otherwise it would have to squish it and not be proportional. So I could now use my arrow key to just kind of fine tune. Let's say I want the whole wing in there, put it about like that, and now I can see the whole thing. And now I know that the frame itself is being fully utilized, meaning that it is the 4.5 by 3.5 size that I wanted for that frame. Okay, so that's the first one. Fill frame proportionally. Now, keep in mind, you can get to these in a few ways. One is going to be in your control panel up here. If you've got a lot of stuff up there, sometimes it doesn't show up there. You can also get to it by going to Object and where are you? Fitting. And then those same things are here. So there's fill frame proportionally. Or you can right click on the image and go to fitting and find those same things. You've got several different ways to get to these options, but they're the same options, just in different places. Okay, so that's my first one, fill frame proportionally. My next one is to fit the content proportionally. Okay, so this is saying, I want to see the whole picture. I don't want you to crop off any of it at all. I want it to be proportional. So make it fit in this frame as best you can while showing me the whole image. So if I click on that, you'll see that there it is. It didn't fill the whole frame because the proportions aren't quite right for that, but it's fitting my height perfectly, making sure to show the whole image and stay within the parameters of the frame, not get any further out than the frame. Okay, now both of those are keeping it proportional, which is what I want. These ones over here, unless you're dealing with, well, this next one, unless you're dealing with something that is like just a color, you don't want to use it because this is going to distort it. This is saying fit the content to the frame. If I do that, the only way I can do this is by stretching that image out sideways. And you don't want to do that. You don't want your images to get stretched or squished at all. So this one would be useful if maybe I just had a solid blue swatch and I wanted to fill that frame with it, then I could do it that way. But generally, I would have just drawn a square here, a rectangle here, and filled it with my normal fill anyway. So rarely are you going to use this button, but that's what it does. The next one is fit the frame to the content. So let's say that I've already done this. I fit the content proportionally, and now I'm like, okay, so let's now just make this frame the exact same size as what my image is now. And so when I click that, you're going to see it just pulled in those sides to make the frame exactly the size of my image. Okay. And then the last one here is center content. So let's say it was going, it was smaller in the frame or bigger in the frame or whatever. If you click that, it's going to just center it exactly within the frame, but not change the size of it at all. Just center it. Okay. So that's how you're going to be placing images. When you're doing your logo, things like that, you're going to be using that. So for some things it makes more sense to fill the frame proportionally and just let it crop off part of the image if they're unimportant. For other things, it makes more sense to fit the image in the frame. Like, for example, if you're putting a logo in there, well, we can't cut off any of the logo. So we need to make sure that the logo all fits within the frame, and we need to make sure it's proportional. Okay? So any questions on working with the image frames, the frame tool here? Okay. then let's talk next. I want to show you, this is a really quick one, but a couple of really good shortcuts that are very useful. And these work in any of the Adobe applications, but I find them very useful in working on a project. They have to do with the hand tool and the zoom tool. So the zoom tool and the hand tool, as you probably know, when I go in there, the zoom tool, when I click, it zooms in. If I hold down Option click, it zooms out. The hand tool, when I click on that, allows me to just kind of move what I'm looking at when I'm zoomed in. Well, there's some shortcuts that are related to these that are very, very handy. One, with the hand tool, remember that no matter what tool you're using, okay, let's say I'm using the line segment tool and I'm just drawing some lines. Oh, we better make sure these have a stroke so we can actually see them. I'm drawing some lines along here and, oh, come on. I get to the end and I need more room to do more lines. Well, rather than switching to the hand tool, if I hold down the space bar, it automatically switches to the hand tool and I can just slide over. And then when I let go of the space bar, I'm back to the last tool that I used. Okay, so that's one shortcut. The other two are even more useful in my mind, and they have to do with double clicking these buttons. If you double click the hand tool, it automatically zooms out to where you can see the full page. And if you double click the zoom tool, it automatically zooms out to 100%. Okay, so you'll be zooming in a lot, working on things. Anytime you want to get out and look at the whole thing, double click the hand tool, and then of course click W so you can get stuff out of the way, see what it looks like. And if you want to get in to 100%, get the width of it there, just double click the zoom tool. All right. Now, let's talk about using color, because we're obviously going to be doing some colors on these things. In your other classes, you would have learned about the swatches and about the color panel. We're going to talk about those a bit more, but we're also going to talk about some other things that you can do in InDesign. First of all, a good rule of thumb, we've got these default swatches here, but you don't want to use default swatches. When you're getting started on a new project, a good rule of thumb is just to come up to go to your swatches panel, click on the menu, say that you want to select all unused swatches, and that'll just select any swatches that you don't actually have in your document right now. It's not selecting the blue one because I did that blue banner before, but we'll go ahead and just add that to the selection. And then go up to there again and say that you want to delete these swatches. And it'll get rid of these default ones, okay? So you're still left with the paper and the black and registration, but that's more for printing. And you can start creating your own colors from this point, okay? And you can create those colors, obviously using the color panel. I could come in here and pick a point on this and then fine tune my CMYK sliders to get the exact color that I want. But I'm going to show you a couple of other cool tools they have in here for working with color. And it is this, well, the eyedropper tool you're probably familiar with, and then the color theme tool, okay? So in order to show this correctly, I'm going to put an image in here. Let's actually go to our classroom and let's download these assets here. So here's the assets for the Starlight Bistro. And I've got the example menus, I've got the text from the menu, I've got the logo, and then I've got these images. So let's say I'm looking at these images and I feel like that one of these has some great colors that would work well for my menu. Maybe this salad one. This one's got some fun colors in it. Well, so I'm going to go ahead and place the salad one into my menu. Let's say that I'm using it. I've got a frame set up for it like so. And I'm going to go to File and Place. And just, I could just drag it from the file onto here. What it would do is just create a frame that was the exact size of the image if I did that. But so here we go. And let's now tell this that I want it to fill the frame proportionally. And I'm going to double click on that and just shift it up a little bit. Like so. So here we go, and I've got this, and let's see, I like some of these colors, and I'd like to look at using them for my palette. Well, one thing I could do is I could use the eyedropper tool. Keyboard shortcut is I, and I could just come in and click on any of these and get to that color. I'm going to just create a oval over here to fill these colors with. So yeah, I'm using my eyedropper tool, and I go around here and say, well, what's this blue look like? Oh, that's kind of nice. This is a nice red here. And if I found ones I like, I could add it. So that's working with the eyedropper tool. But now let's look at this new tool. I just recently put this in there that's called the color theme tool. With the color theme tool, I'm going to come and I'm going to click on this image. And you see how it's chosen a bunch of colors out of here that might look nice and that go together in a theme. I can also click and drag over like part of the image if I want to. Let's go away from there. Bring that back. See, I'm dragging a box. Let's say I'm like, it's specifically this area that I'm interested in. Now it's left that blue out of the bowl and just gotten these colors here, right? Or I could say, no, I do like, let's escape that. I do like this bowl. I don't necessarily want the greens. Let's do the bowl and these reds there. And now I've got these colors here. Okay, so, and I can click on this and I can see some different options, right? So here's a colorful one. I've got a bright palette, a dark palette, a deep palette, and a muted palette, right? So this can be kind of a fun way to get some colors together that are drawing from the logo or drawing from an image that you're using in it, and then that way creating a palette of colors that are going to work well with that. And if I do like these, let's say I'm like, great, I'm going to work with these right here. Actually, what I would probably do for this image, let's go ahead and just slamble the whole thing again. And let's come in here and say we'd want the bright one. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to use these. I just click on this button right here. And this button is going to add that to my swatches. So now I've got a thing here called colorful theme. And underneath that are all the colors that pulled from that. And now I can utilize that when I'm creating my menu. Okay. So any questions at all on the color theme tool or the eyedropper tool? Okay. Then let's talk next. Let me see. I'm just going to glance at something here real quick. Let's talk about the links panel. This is going to be an important panel, particularly for troubleshooting when you're working in Illustrator. You can see I've got this panel right here. There's my links panel. If you don't have it out, go to Window in Links, and it'll bring it out. And this shows me any items that are currently linked in my document. So right now it's the salad JPEG. Now this is very useful because it helps me to make sure that this is going to print well, right? Terry, tell me what's the resolution I need to use if I'm making a printable document? Now, because that's the other one. 72 pixels per inch is what I want if it's web-based. And yet exactly 300 pixels per inch for printing. So you actually need quite a bit higher resolution when you're printing than you do if you're going to put something on a website or in an app or that sort of thing. Well, the nice thing is, I'm resizing this image. And so I can come over here and I can click on this image in my links panel. And down here, I'm going to get some really useful information about this. For example, I can see this image is an RGB image. Okay, so before I printed this, I'd actually want to change that to CMYK. And I'll show you, it's actually really easy to do. All I would do is come. Now, if you click on this button, it's going to edit the original, but sometimes it's got the wrong default program. So see if I click that, it takes me to preview, which is not what I want to use to edit this. So instead, I'm going to right-click on it right there, and I'm going to go to Edit With, and I'm going to say I want to edit this image with Photoshop. Okay. And it's going to just open this up directly into Photoshop. Oh, it opened on my other screen, so let me drag that down here so you can see it. So it opened it up here in Photoshop. And one of the things, you know, I can do several things in here, but one of the things I can do is go to image mode and say this needs to be CMYK. It gives me a warning about that. Okay, that's fine. And now CMYK, and I'm just going to hit save. And over on my other screen here, I'm getting the JPEG options box. Bring that over, click OK. And now it's saved. And then I can go ahead and just close Photoshop. And come back to my original here. And I'm going to, and you can see right here, it's now changed that to CMYK. Okay, so this is kind of my headquarters for looking over my linked items and making sure everything's okay. I can bring it back out to Photoshop if I need to change something like the color space, but also I can make sure that I'm okay in my resolution. So there's two measurements here, the actual PPI and the effective PPI. Actual PPI is what is the photo's resolution. Well, this photo's resolution is 762 pixels per inch. Great. But what's the effective PPI? Well, I made this photo smaller, so it's actually bigger. And so I'm fine. I'm well within that 300 pixels per inch range. But maybe if I'd started with a small picture and then I'd expanded it, made it like really, really big on my fine, then I might come in here and see that my actual PPI is fine, but my effective PPI is maybe only 120, right? And that means it's not going to print well. I need to resize this image or go into Photoshop and do whatever you do to make sure that my effective PPI is at least 300 pixels per inch. Now, that's not anything you're going to need to worry about for this assignment, but I just want you to know that it's there and some of the things we use the links panel for. Also, if it had broken the link, let's say that you emailed this to me and I tried to open it and it said, hey, that salad JPEG isn't there, you don't have that. And then you emailed me later and said, oh, hey, sorry, I forgot to give you the salad JPEG that you need for that. Then I could come in here and click to relink it and it would point it to the right file again. Right now, this picture isn't actually a part of the InDesign file. It's just pointing to where I have that image saved here in my downloads folder and using that file to bring it into this file. So if I were to just to email this InDesign file over to you, Tara, when you open it up, it would say, hey, you don't have the salad image, and it wouldn't show it to you correctly. Does that make sense? And we're going to talk about how to get around that with packaging in a minute. But anyway, so that's the links panel. This link panel is a great way to just go in here and just double check all of your links, make sure that things are good about color space, make sure that we haven't broken the link at all and don't need to reconnect it, and make sure that we're okay on resolution. Okay. So let's talk about text in Illustrator now, or sorry, in InDesign now. So I'm going, my normal type tools here. I'm going to go to my type tool. I'm going to create a text box. And when I'm working with the text box itself, I actually get my character panel and my paragraph panel right up here in the control panel. So the A is the character panel, and the one down here with the paragraph symbol is the paragraph panel. Okay. Those are the same things you're going to see over here in the character panel and in the paragraph panel. So you can go to either place in order to work with it. And we're going to go over some of those. Most of these are going to be things you're familiar with, your other classes. But I want to make sure, we're not going to go over all of it today because we'll be doing a lot more with this stuff next week, like styles and things like that. But for this week, I just want to go over some of the basics in here. So first of all, in here, I've got my font and my font, style, if it's bold or things like that. And those are also right up here. Font size. And then we've got leading and tracking and kerning. So just as a brief reminder, you've probably seen this in other classes, but just to give you a reminder of what those are, I'm going to come here and fill this with placeholder text. Okay, so placeholder text is just, just what it sounds like, there to fill its place. So with this, I've got my size here, right? Make my text bigger or smaller. I've got my leading, and leading is the measurement between baselines. So baseline is basically the invisible shelf that my text is sitting on. So if you were to draw a line that kind of underlined what this text is sitting on, that's the baseline. And the leading is the measurement between one line's baseline and the other line's baseline. So basically from the bottom of this M to the bottom of this U is 14.4 points. That's set on auto, so it's automatically adjusting that. If I make this bigger, you'll see that now the leading went to 16.8. It's kind of trying to guess at what a good leading would be for that font size. But I can manually do that as well. I can make the leading smaller, and it's going to bring those lines closer together, make the leading bigger, and push those lines further apart. Now, I'm not distorting the text at all. It's just the space between the lines of text that's changing. Okay, so any questions on leading? And again, if you're in here, like actually editing the text, then leading will also be up here in the control panel. There it is with the two A's sitting on top of each other. Tracking is the spacing between the characters horizontally. It's this one here that's the V and A with the white background. And if I increase that, you'll see the letters all get further apart from each other. If I decrease that, they all get closer together. A rule of thumb with tracking and leading and really any of these things we're going to talk about is you want it to be consistent within any style of text. You wouldn't want to have the tracking of one of these paragraphs really wide and the tracking of another one narrower. That you want to have consistency in each of the different, in your body text, in your headline text, that sort of thing. Now, and then the last one is kerning. Kerning is really just for big text, anything over about 14 points. If I come in here and just write my name, and let's make this nice and big, and let's change it to Times New Roman because I know that has some tracking issue or kerning issues with my name. Okay, so if you look at my name here, the font is trying to space it equally, but it's not doing it very well. For example, the M and the E sure feel a lot further apart than these two R's or this I, right? The J is also drifting off a bit. The R's are really are touching each other. They're getting so close. And so on small font, you're not going to worry about that. It's first of all, there's so much of it, it would take you forever. Secondly, it's small enough that those spacing differences aren't going to be very noticeable or noticeable at all. But when it's this size, you want to adjust it. So you come in and put your cursor between the letters you want to adjust. And tracking is, kerning is this one here, V/A. And I would just tuck that down a little bit to bring that E closer to that M. I'll go to these R's and just bump it up a little bit to spread those out a little bit. And I could just do that along my name to get it all spaced out right. Okay, so that's kerning. And again, if you're in editing, that is also up here. You've got tracking and kerning right here. Now, if you click these two arrows to the left of character panel, oh, never mind, I'm thinking of Illustrator. Up here is where you're going to deal with this now. Up here, I've also got all caps, superscript, underline, small caps, some things you may want to do there. Now, the thing I want you to avoid, don't use these. There may be a time in your career when you're working on a specific project and you find a use for them, but in general, you don't want to use these, are the ones that look like this T with arrows pointing up and down, and this T with arrows pointing side to side, okay? And they're also down here, up and down, side to side. That stretches your text, okay? If I do the up and down one, you see it makes it all squished out tall. If I go down here, it's going to shrink it, make it too short. This distorts the font, and you do not want to be playing around with that. Again, there are very specific purposes that you were like, oh, that would be useful here. But for the most part, you just want to avoid it. Okay. And then I've got my baseline. This raises you from the baseline and lowers you from the baseline. Again, unless there's a very specific reason to do that, you don't want to do it. So you can kind of just leave it alone. The most important ones are these ones are the ones above the bottom four. The bottom four are very niche in their use. And this one skews the letters. Again, not something you generally would want to do to your letters. So that's the character panel. Any questions at all on working with the character panel? All right, so let's talk about the paragraph panel then. The paragraph panel is where I'm going to be looking at, overall paragraph alignment and stuff. So I've got my alignments at the top, left aligned, centered. Oops, select that first. Centered, so I've got the rag on the left and the right. Right aligned, where I've got the straight line on the right, rag on the left. I've got my justified, where it's adjusting the spacing to give me straight lines on the left and the right. That one you got to be a little careful with, because depending on the paragraph, you can end up with lines that have really odd wide spaces along them. This justified puts the last line to the left. The next one puts the last line to the center, and that one to the right. And this one fully justifies even spreading out that last line. And then these last two are kind of special. This has to do if you're doing facing pages against the spreads. This is a line toward the spine, and this is a line away from the spine. Okay. And the rest of these I'm going to save for next week when we're talking about the inside of your menu. And we're going to be talking about text styles next week as well. So the cover is going to be somewhat limited on text. We'll go over these ones next week. They're more for like larger bodies of text. But any questions on those basics? Okay. Well, let's talk next then about creating an InDesign package, how you're going to get this ready to turn in the first place. Actually, one thing I do want to show you, you can use your own images. We did supply you with some really good high resolution ones, but if you want to look outside of that for some of your own, the website pexels.com has free stock photography, so you could use that to find some more of your own if you'd like to. Okay. All right, so let's talk about packaging this. And so I'm going to place that image in here again. Okay, so we've got the one image there. And then I'm going to create some text. And I'm going to fill that with placeholder text. And I'm going to use a non-standard font. I'm going to go to something that's a little more fun. I'm going to go with this Gotham rounded font. Okay. Whoops. So obviously this is a horrible design as it is so far. It's not nearly done, but for our purposes of packaging, it'll be fine. If I were to save this, so I'm going to come here and I'm going to go File, and I'm going to save it. And let's call this example again. Save it on my desktop. Okay, so it's all saved. And here I have this InDesign file, okay? You'll see a second file. This is a working file. This is only there when it's open and being worked on. The moment I quit InDesign, this will disappear. But so this is my InDesign file. So like I was saying before, if I were to just toss this in an email to you, Tara, when you open it up, you're going to get a warning, first of all, and that is that you don't have the picture. The picture's missing. But then you're going to get a second warning, too, and that is you don't have the font. That rounded Gotham that I downloaded is one that you probably don't have. And so it's going to say, well, you don't have this font, so we're going to substitute that with a default font, and then it's going to change it. And so when you're looking at it, it's not going to look the way that I wanted it to look. You're not going to see the font the way that I wanted you to see the font, right? So an InDesign package is a way to get around this, okay? How it works is I come up here and I say File, and I say Package. And this is an area where I can basically just make sure there's no problems with what I've done. So it'll have these warning signs that there's a problem. So in this case, the problem is that's an RGB image. I didn't change it to CMYK like I did the other one. But I'm not worried about that for what we're doing today, so I'm just going to ignore that. So I can just glance this over, and then I can say Package. Now, here's where I can write instructions to the printer. Okay, I can put my contact information, any special instructions on the print job. For what we're doing in this course, don't worry about this page, but just that's what it's for. You can type in any special things for the printer to get access to. Now I'm going to click Continue. Now here, it's asking me what things I want in my package and what do I want to call the package. By default, it's going to choose the name of the file and then folder. Okay, I'll just leave it that way for this. The things I want to make sure I have checked that are also the default things, I want to have it copy the fonts. I want to have it copy the linked graphics. I want to have it update the graphic links in the package. So those are all checked. I want to include an IDML and I want to include a PDF. And you can set the, what, if you have a special preset for the PDFs, you can choose what to do that as here. So you're really going to leave these as the default for now. And I'm going to come here and I'm just going to say package. And it gives me a warning about the fact that fonts are copyrighted, just to make, make sure you're covering yourself legally. I can just click OK on that, and it's going to create my package. So I'm going to go ahead and just close this now. And here's my package. It's this folder right here. If I look in that folder, you're going to see I have everything that I need to send to someone. I have the InDesign file. I also have a folder called links in which it has put any of the images that I have linked on that document, so they'll have that too. I have any fonts that I've used that other person may not have. And then I have a PDF that was created right here. And I also have that instructions document. If I'd written special instructions to the printer, it would be in there. So this is what you're going to submit. You're going to submit this package, and you're gonna compress it first. So on a Mac, you just right-click on it and choose Compress Example Folder. In Windows, I believe you right-click on it and choose Zip, and it's going to create a zipped folder for you, right? This, and this is what you would give the appropriate name to and submit. And that way, when I go to grade it, I would just double-click on this zip folder, and I'd end up with the package folder. And I double-click on that, and I open your InDesign file, and it goes ahead and accesses the link in the package, accesses the font in the package, and makes sure that I'm seeing this the way that you intended me to. All right? And that's how you would also send to a printer as well. So any questions on that, on creating a package for submission? Now, just like I was saying, you see I can see my text box, I can see my stuff. If I hit W, again, I get a preview of what this actually looks like. Maybe I'd want to give a stroke. The frame works just like any other object. You can give a stroke to it. You can put effects on it, anything like that. It'll work with the frame instead of the image itself. All right, so that's everything that I have to go over today. Now, keep in mind, I did not cover everything today that's in the quiz. You definitely need to watch those other videos I talked about, because they're going to go over several other tools, more details on some of the tools and panels, things like that, to give you the information you need to do this assignment well and also to do well on the quiz. But do you have any questions for me on anything at all before we call it a day, Tara? Okay. Well, remember, for you, Tara, and for anyone that's watching the recording afterward, remember that I'll be doing a live a multi-session on Thursday, also from 10 a.m. until noon, if you want me to give you any one-on-one help on this. And remember, you can go to any of the other multi-sessions if you're not able to come at that time, or you can go into our Learning Coach or the Student Success Center as well to get some one-on-one help on any of this. Thank you very much for joining me in the live session, Tara. I really appreciate you being here. It's always great to have someone to interact with when teaching these things. And anyone else watching the recording, if you're able to make the live session next week or going forward, would definitely be appreciated. But at the very least, just make sure you're watching these recordings. And otherwise, have a fantastic rest of your day and rest of your week. And I will see you next Tuesday. Thanks, Tara. Have a good one.